Well, we have now done a little bit of pixel masking, right, with that snowbank, showing it, hiding it, awesome, fun, good times. Um, but just doing brushwork is often not the most efficient way to make a mask. Now, remember the mask on an adjustment layer, the mask on a pixel layer. The way it works, it's just like black pixels or white pixels, right? Anytime we put black paint down, does one thing. Anytime we put white paint down, does another thing. Black paint hides whatever the layer is. White paint shows whatever the layer is. So if there is an easier way to get black paint or white paint in there than going in and like doing it with a little tiny brush, we should do that. So we're going to go through 3 methods for doing that. Next week, we'll go into using the pen tool to make a path, which frankly, for a subject like this would be even better and easier. No one ever believes me, right? Students are always like, the pen tool, such a pain in the ass, Brad, I hate it, I don't want to use it. And I'm like, well, it'll make your life easier. And they're like, no, it won't. I'm like, yes, it will. And we have a fight. So we're going to do something else instead of the pen tool. First off, let's go ahead and take this layer and call it brass candlestick shape. Now, I am going to duplicate this layer, right? I'm going to do that by selecting it, coming up here, and saying duplicate layer. I'm going to call this, I don't know what to call it, original. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at the bottom of the layer stack, and I'm going to turn it off. Now, why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I, student, am just starting out doing this masking thing, and the likelihood that I will inadvertently put black or white paint on my pixel layer is kind of high. So I might as well have a hidden backup copy of those pixels in case I screwed up. So that's why I'm doing it. You should probably do it too. Okay, so I've got that brass candlestick shape. I'm going to make another layer by hitting my little plus layer icon down there. It makes a layer called layer 1. I'm going to double click on it and call it white backdrop. I'm going to grab my paint bucket, G on the keyboard, right? Make sure that we have the paint bucket, not the gradient tool or whatever that other thing, 3D material drop tool. Don't want that. And then I'm going to go down here and make sure that I have white paint, default X. There we go. You could also go in and pick a different color if you felt so inclined, but I just want white paint. And I'm just going to bloop, drop it in there. You're like, Brad, where'd the object go? Don't worry. Drag that layer down below the brass candlestick. It's not really a brass candlestick, it's part of the lamp, but it doesn't matter. So what I would like is to silhouette out this shape, right? Have it just be on a white backdrop, e-commerce, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do that in a couple of different techniques. First one I'm going to do is just using the good old-fashioned magic wand. So the magic wand is over here on the toolbar. If I hover over it, it will tell me that it is W on the keyboard. Click that. If I click and hold, right, you may very well first default to the quick selection tool. So that may be the thing that you go to. I'll show you that in just a second. But first, I'm going to go just with the regular old magic wand. Magic wand just looks like a brush. I need to make it a little bit bigger. Oh, that is not it. That is the quick selection tool. Brad, what are you doing? Okay. Magic wand does not look like a brush. Just looks like a little dot. It has a contextual menu up here, and one of the things is tolerance. So I'm going to just go over here and click. And the whole thing is selected. That's not what I wanted. Why did that happen? I'm on the wrong darn layer. All right, deselect, Command D, go up to the brass candlestick shape layer. Let's try it again, shall we? Okay. So what the magic wand does is I click somewhere, and Photoshop looks at what I clicked on, and is like, interesting. That was a pixel which was basically this color and tone, kind of a light gray. And then it says, okay, well, what are the pixels next to it? Are they similar to that, or are they different? and it goes out, and anything that seems similar to that, it includes in the selection. And anything that seems too different from that, it excludes from the selection. So you can see, right, as I come over here and hit this black card, right, my selection stops. You can also see that over here, apparently it is a little bit darker gray, and so my selection stops. There's also a bunch of little like dots and crap in there, right, where there's like either schmutz on my sensor, schmutz on the backdrop, like there's like a hair back there, right, like bunch of garbage. So I'm going to hit Command D for deselect, get my magic wand again, and I'm going to change my tolerance. So let's change my tolerance to 32 from 16. So I'm going to click it now. So by increasing my tolerance, what it does is it's more tolerant of difference. Meaning that if it says, okay, you clicked on this light gray, what's this thing next to it, right? If I have a very low tolerance, even if there's a very small difference, it's like, whoa, 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 we're not including that in the selection. Hell no. If my tolerance is very, very high, it just looks out there and is like, yeah, sure, come on into the selection. Come on, this is great. Everybody, let's all hang out. So that's what tolerance is. What should you set it to? Well, I mean, for this, 32 seems like it did a pretty good job. You are going to need to pay attention to what the fuck you're doing. And if it seems like it is leaving you with too many islands and holes and whatever, then you're going to need to increase the tolerance. If it seems like it's selecting too much stuff, then you're going to need to decrease the tolerance. That's cool. With that all selected, right, I can see I have this card over here that is not being selected. I'd like to include that in my selection because I want to use this to get rid of all of this background. To include that, to add that to my selection, I can hit M on the keyboard to get the marching ants. I can hold down the Shift key, and you'll see that now I have a little plus sign next to my cursor, and I can just use that to add stuff to my selection. Now, I could go around and do that for all of these little frickin' dots, but that's a pain in the ass. I would like to have some way of just saying, hey, just get rid of a little stuff. Easiest way to do that. If I go up here to the Select menu, I can go to Select, Modify, and Expand. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on one of these little bits of schmutz. Okay, so there we've got two little schmutz bits. So select, modify, expand, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand out that selection, right? So wherever my edge of my selection is, where there is selected stuff on this side and not selected stuff on this side, it is going to expand it into the not selected stuff by some number of pixels. How many pixels? I don't know. Let's try 5. Maybe that's too much. I'll hit OK. And you'll see that those islands went away. Why? Well, because there was this island of not selected stuff, and then all around it was selected stuff. It expanded the selected stuff out 5 pixels, and that basically covered the entire non-selected area. Now that's good, but I didn't necessarily want my selection to expand 5 pixels everywhere, right? Like this has kind of come in a little bit too far on my main shape. So if I liked where it was originally, what I can do now is I can go right back up here to Select, Modify, and instead of Expand, I can come down here to Contract. I can contract it by a slightly lower amount, let's say 4 pixels. And now came back to almost where it was. I could have done it the full 5 pixels, but frankly, I felt like I could stand to lose a little bit of that edge. And you'll see that this didn't come back. Why not? Well, when it expanded it out, right, it closed that hole, right? And then when it tried to contract back, there was no hole for it to contract back from. So it expanded out, it got rid of that little hole, and then didn't have anything to contract back from. So doing a quick expand contract is a nice way to fill up any sort of like little like pinholes in your selection. It's not always going to work, right? If you have a big thing like that big black card, right, you'll have to go grab the marquee, hold down Shift, add to your selection, and grab it. You might find yourself using the magic wand, holding down Shift and adding areas, but that will do a pretty good job. Okay, so that selection is there. It's not perfect. There's still a little bit of funkiness, right? If I go down here, I can see that it's eaten away into that, right? I could try to fix that. I could grab my magic wand tool again. I could lower my tolerance back down to 16, and I could come in here and hold down the Option key to minus. Click on that. That did okay, but not perfect, right? Hold down plus key, come back in there. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted. Minus key, right? I'm like, oh, this just seems too complicated. So I'm just going to leave that alone and not deal with it. So with this overall selection as it is, I'm going to go up here to my brass candlestick shape, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the Japanese flag to make a new layer mask. Now, a couple of things, right? A, right, whatever the active selection was used as the mask. B, this was exactly the opposite of what the mask was that we wanted, right? This, I don't know, maybe other people can remember which does what. This happens to me all the time, right? It'll often be a function of what's easier to select. If the object had been a solid color, right? If it had been like a bright, flat blue candlestick, maybe we could have clicked on that with the magic wand, made that selection, and we would be fine. But it wasn't. It was the shiny metal thing where the tone and the color vary all over the place, but the background was pretty consistent. So we selected the thing that was consistent, and we ended up with a mask that was backwards. Oh no. Super easy fix. Just come back over here, make sure we're on that layer mask, and then we can invert it. We can do that by either hitting Command I on the keyboard to invert, right? You can see when we do that, what in our mask was white is black, what was black was white. Or I can come up and do that. I'm like, I don't actually remember where it is in the menu. There we go. Image, adjustments, invert, boop. And now we are pretty good. Once we have that, right, you can go in there and do any touch-up you might need. If I grab my brush, I can make sure I have black paint. I can come in there and I might make a little harder edge on my brush. All right, try to come in there and fix some of that. Right, it's going to be difficult with this freaking trackpad. X. But again, the nice thing is that if I do screw it up, I can either hit Command Z and undo that, or I can just switch my paint color, right, and bring it back. So that is one method of selecting and how we can use it to make a nice backdrop.